Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Turin, Capital of Taste. A good plan. Okay, so now, Veronica, I think that, we want to walk through it. We have these great testimonials that says, can really bring us sort of this everyday experience of what they do and really talk about passionately about what they do. So if you don't mind, Guido, I will start with Luca just because, the curiosity immediately goes to, as I read, he's the president, I'll read it once again, to the Urban Vineyard, which I think in itself, it's almost sounds like an oxymoron. How is it possible in urban cities you actually can find a vineyard? So that's question number one. And two, why you doing that to yourself? Because it seems like a daunting job to actually have to preserve this beautiful thing. So take it away, Luca. Thank you very much, and tell us all about what you do and how awesome it is.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I suggest first of all to put on the video so that answer you some questions.
Perfect. Let's take a look at the video. All right, so that beautiful vineyard that overlooks Torino. So I guess that must be one of them.
Yeah. That's why when I talk about the urban vineyards and specifically of the Villa della Regina's vineyard, which is the one you already saw, I never talk about a wine or a vineyard, but I talk about a love story. Because this is representing very well our approach to our work. Because Villa della Regina is a story of Renaissance, because it's one of the few places in Turin that has been bombed and highly damaged and abandoned during the Second World War. And that specific vineyard is very important for us because it's something that has been alive and productive for over 400 years and used to give wine and grapes to the royal family and the court. Has been planted in the 16th century, just like when the villa was built, and that was one of the few royal residencies of the Savoy family. But it's unique for that specific reason. It was the only one with a productive vineyard. Usually in royal residencies around Europe, vineyards were just put there as a decorative thing. That one was productive, which is very important. So in the early 90s, after 50 years of abandon, the Ministry of Culture started the rebuilding of Villa della Regina. And 10 years later, at the end of the work, they called us, as we are probably the most representative producer of the Turin Hills, an opinion about also the replanting of the historic vineyard. And it's a funny story because firstly, when we went there and we saw, we haven't got that kind of landscape on Torino. We got a forest grown in 50 years. So we said to the architect, okay, thank you for thinking on us, but it's really impossible. We had so many things to do. It was me and my father, so we said we got serious thing to do. Then, as we are really in love with Torino, and that's why I'm really glad to be here representing Torino with Guido and Pietro. They are a legend of Turin artisan making, and we said, okay, let's try. And so we took 6 months only to cut the trees and reshape the hill, and then replanting, thanks to also the CNR and the University of Turin, the historic Villa della Regina's vineyard in the old-fashioned way. So with the rows very close each other. So we do it all manually. It's a really hard work. It's a UNESCO heritage site, so it's really complicated to work there. But when I go there working, it's really hard, but it's a satisfaction, because we managed to give back to Turin its only vineyard, and it's wonderful because you can visit it. It's 2 minutes far from Piazza Vittorio, one of the main places of Torino. And I'm really in love with Torino, and you should definitely come here, because it's one of the few places in the world where you can find that melting pot of culture, history, and great things to eat and to drink. My family produces wine from 80 years. I'm the third generation. And we've got a winery just 15 kilometers far from Torino on the Turin Hills. So you can definitely come and visit the Villa della Regina's vineyard, and moving to the winery and having a tasting or maybe a lunch. So we focused very much on our eno-touristic side of working. It's a family-run business, so it's me, my father, my wife, and 2 guys helping us in the winery and the vineyards. So you will find me coming and going with you to visiting the vineyards and the winery. And just to mention the Urban Vineyards Association that you mentioned earlier. Well, it's another crazy project that I started 1 year ago, more or less. Because I was looking for some other crazy people around the world making the same crazy thing as mine. So I managed to find some very interesting people around the world, and we built that Urban Vineyards Association in May 2019, and that association includes many of the most beautiful urban vineyards of the world. What I mean, there are vineyards in the inner circle of a big city, so we've got great things to see, just like the Leonardo's vineyard in Milan, or the vineyards in Venice, or in Siena, or in Palermo. Then out of Italy, we've got Paris with the Montmartre vineyard, or the London one, or the Berlin one. But we've got one that is in the US. It's called Rooftop Reds, and it's in Brooklyn. So and it's wonderful, because there's a philosophy behind that kind of association, promoting not only wine, but the wine culture and the sustainability of wine producing in a big city like Torino or Paris, or in Brooklyn as well. So this is what we are trying to tell to people, and believe me, it's something really incredible, because it's when you go there and you take that photo that will break your Instagram account from Villa della Regina with the landscape of Turin. I promise it's really breathtaking. So it's very, very interesting. So I definitely suggest you to come and visit.
Amazing. I mean, I mean, adding anything seems like a waste of breath. I mean, it's really remarkable, and even the video to show really does give a sense of what really is this sort of really bizarre contrast of sort of this agricultural sort of environment, very so close to a bustling city such as Torino. I want to know more about this vineyard, though. So Villa della Regina. So was it? Do you know the history? Why was it created? Was because the Queen wanted to have one? Is that why it's called Villa della Regina? Do you know?
Yeah, because that was the residence of two queens of the Savoy family, and it was built in that specific position just because we had many residencies. We had the power ones, the hunt ones, just like Stupinigi. Then that was specifically oriented on agriculture, because the Savoy family, the royal family, everywhere in the world where they've been, they brought with them some good wine and good food with them.
Yeah.
So if you think that the Paris Montmartre vineyard has been planted by the Savoy family as well, that tells you how close they were.
You can have that.
Everywhere. We're about to include in our association the Vigna dei Papi, the Avignon one. So another historic place for the royal family. So that was a right position because the exposition was perfect. So in fact, that vineyard is always the first one that we harvest every year because it takes the sun all day long. So they had also a man running the vineyard and running the agricultural part that was called the Vignolante. And we got a house, a tiny house, just at the bottom of Villa della Regina, which is called the Vignolante's house, the Casa del Vignolante, where that man was living, and he was in charge on the vineyard and the agriculture of Villa della Regina. So we're really focused on that.
And I remember you mentioning that this is one of the few vineyards that actually still produce commercially available wine and the OCG wine. Tell me more about what wine is that?
Yeah, it's a DOC actually. The variety, the grape variety, is Fresa, which is one of the most historic variety of Piemonte, indigenous varieties. Is genetically the father or the son, we still don't know who is the father, who is the son of Nebbiolo grape. Because for the very first time in history, we don't know the mother. So it's something funny, but it's like that. And so we produce from that specific vineyard a cru, just like the French would say, that is called Fresa di Chieri, which is the DOC, with the cru Vigna Villa della Regina. Is obviously a limited and numbered production, but is available, and it's actually one of the biggest urban vineyards of the world because it's almost 1 hectare, which is not definitely a big deal for a normal vineyard, but for an urban vineyard, it's really a big deal.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And once again, we will get back to you. Bye. See you the next one. Ciao.